Hi, and welcome to our next presentation, now with Eltel. And with us, we have CEO Casimir Lindholm, who will present the company. Myself, my name is Max Bacco, and I am an equity research analyst here at ABG. And with that said, Casimir, please go ahead with the presentation.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Casimir Lindholm, CEO of Eltel since September 2018. I will shortly go through the backgrounds of Eltel, what kind of business we are in, and where we are in our transition story, and how the future looks and how the markets looks. We can go into the next page. So Eltel was founded 20 years ago. We are a market leader in the Nordics, field service provider, mainly operations then in Finland, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. We also have a project business in Poland, a smart metering business in Germany. Roughly 5,000 employees and a little more than 900 million euros in net sales last year. We can go to the next page. Our business is securing lifelines of modern society. It means that we are both building, servicing, and maintaining the infrastructure in the Nordics. On the communication side, we are, for example, building fiber, 5G. We are also dismantling infrastructure, for example, 3G and old copper networks. We are on the power side. We are building and maintaining and servicing power lines. We are building overhead lines, and we are also installing smart meters to end customer homes. We have been installing more than 5 million smart meters over the last 10 years in the Nordics. So that is our role in the society. Our main customers are the big telcos, companies like Telia, Telenor, Elisa, DNA, TDC, and so forth. And on the power side, companies like Caruna, Vattenfall, Fortum, and those kind of utility companies. We are also in, for example, street lighting business in Finland. So we have also niches within the society and securing, in that case, street lighting in Finland, for example. We can move to the next page. We are, of course, a key player regarding sustainability. One way we have shown that is during COVID-19 times, of course, more and more people have been working and spending more time in their homes or secondary homes. And our role is, of course, to secure that the infrastructure is in place and the communication works, so we can enable that. We are also part of the site in that sense that we have the 5,000 people, yes, but also more than 3,000 cars. So sustainability and CO2 is important for us. We have committed ourselves to SBTi this year, and we are working on the targets for that, and then we'll communicate those targets next year. We are mainly focusing in changing the energy that we consume to green energy. That is one aspect of it. The other part is that we're changing a big portion of our car fleet to electrical vehicles. And for example, in Norway, we just communicated that we'll change roughly 800 cars to electrical vehicles during the next 4 years. So that is a good example where we're taking actions regarding CO2. Of course, sustainability, health and safety is a big part of that. Last year, we had a lost time injury frequency below 5, and targeting to improve that this year again. And that is, of course, important for us, for our customers, and of course, especially important for our employees so that everybody can come home in one piece after one day's work. That is, of course, key, and that we do everything to prevent accidents in our daily work. So that's in short the areas where we focus around sustainability, mainly then health and safety, CO2, and green energy as much as possible. Going forward, we are also looking at how we can reduce usage of plastic pipes and cables and reuse as much material as possible in the future. We can go to the next slide. So what are the drivers? I was mentioning before what is our role in the society. The drivers that are then driving the market forward, partly changing consumption behavior, as mentioned before, the fact during COVID-19, of course, more and more people spending time at their homes or secondary homes and working from their homes. That is one part. Then, of course, changing consumption behavior is that we are spending more and more green energy. That requires better and better infrastructure on the power side to the wind parks. We have just won a more than 20 million euro project in Finland, where we are then building a 400 kV and 100 kV line to new wind parks. And that will continue in all Nordic countries where there's a increased demand for green energy. And again, the infrastructure needs to be updated to be able to then support that trend. Smart energy solutions, as mentioned before, we are a market leader in smart metering. And at the moment, we have just started a big project in Sweden, more than 50 million euro project, where we're installing smart meters to homes in Sweden. And that has been going on for many years now. The life cycle of a meter is roughly 10 years. So that's the cycle when we return to those countries and then change meters again. In communication, of course, 5G is a big thing for us. It's roughly 10 to 15% of our net sales going forward, and a growing segment for us. I would say at the moment, Finland, Norway, and Denmark are ahead of Sweden in 5G, and maybe Finland is further than the other countries in 5G at the moment. And of course, fiber is also a key area for us. At the moment, the fiber is increasing in Finland, still very active in Norway and Denmark, and then in Sweden it has peaked already. But still some fiber works in rural areas to be built also in Sweden. And then again, as mentioned before, we are taking down old infrastructure and I mentioned 3G and copper as example of that, where we're taking down old infrastructure. With that, we can move to the next page. So market drivers also regarding digitalization, of course, 5G again will enable both private persons and businesses to do things faster and more in a more reliable way than before. The same goes regarding fiber and fixed wireless access. These are all areas where there is a demand and customer demand, and we're building to support that end customer demand, and also then of course take part in the service and maintenance part of those infrastructures going forward. Sustainable energy, I mentioned before, the power grid updates. That is not only in Nordics, that's in Northern Europe, where of course the power grid needs to be updated. In many areas the infrastructure is very old, and again mentioned before, wind parks, for example, solar energy and so forth, requires a updated infrastructure going forward. Smart meterings also mentioned before as one of our business areas. We can move forward. So Eltel then divided between communication and power. We are clearly a bigger player in communication because we're market leader in the Nordics in communication. In power, we're only market leader in Finland. And then the countries, you can see that Finland is the biggest country, and then followed by Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. And now we have 90% of the net sales in the Nordics, and that is according to the Nordic strategy that we announced 3 years ago, and we are delivering on that one. So at the end, we want to be a fully Nordic player, and then start to grow in the Nordics from next year onwards by 2 to 4%, and also of course capitalize on the trends that we have been discussing earlier here in this presentation regarding fiber, 5G, and wind parks and so forth. We are also working and have been working through the last 2 years in improving our internal processes, productivity and so forth, and that has shown good results. We did that first in Finland in 2019, and you can see that from the improved results in Finland. And we did that in 2020 in Denmark, and Denmark has also improved the productivity. But in the case of Denmark, we have lost some top line, so that is the main challenge in Denmark. And now we are in process of improving the productivity in Sweden, partly this year, and that part will continue into next year. Going forward, we'll also start looking at growth through consolidation and M&As. And of course, work with increased efficiency is always part of the game being this in this business. We can move to the next slide. This is our transformation journey. It started some 5 years ago when Eltel was a mix of a project company and a service company. We have since then closed down operations in 5 countries, and we have divested half of the business in 2 other countries, and that has been the plan to take the company back to the Nordics, to the home market. And that's the journey we're on. As mentioned before, we have invested a lot in to improve the profitability. We have improved the quality towards our main customers over the last couple of years. We're clearly improving in the areas of health and safety, and also employees within Eltel are more satisfied than before. Of course, the restructuring of the business has now been ongoing for some years, and of course, going into the next step of the journey, their growth, organic growth, and growth through M&As is key. And then, of course, fully implement the Nordic strategy. In 22 and 23 and onwards, we have organic growth initiatives in each country. For example, in Finland, we'll attack the industry segment, both in power and in communication. In Sweden, we'll focus on the public sector, where we can do the same business as we do directly towards telcos, for example. And in Norway, we're focusing on broadening the customer base in communication. And then in Denmark, we have several smaller organic growth initiatives. But on top of that, of course, again, looking at consolidation, looking at M&As going forward. We can move to the next slide. So, what have we done so far? Where are we? We have strengthened our position in the Nordics, clearly market leader in communication and clearly market leader in power in Finland. We have improved the quality substantially over the years. We have gained market share towards our biggest customers, and we extended a lot of the long-term framework agreements, mainly 19 and 20, gives a good platform for us going forward. And when we have been ramping down and selling assets, first of all, we have sold the assets in Poland and in Germany on good multiples, which has made us possible then to reduce the net debt. And then we have been closing down operations in Africa, UK, and Georgia. That has went well. On top of that, we have changed the organization 3 years ago. Eltel was in a matrix, and now we are in a fully country-driven organization in the Nordics. So we are closer to customer and full P&L responsibility locally. So that has also been done during this journey. We can then move to the next page. So from a transformation perspective, we can see that health and safety numbers have been improving every year. We can see that employee engagement and satisfaction has improved. We can see that the customer KPIs and mainly quality has improved substantially over the last couple of years. We can see that the net sales has been coming down, and that is exactly according to the plan when we announced the Nordic strategy. And then we start from a new baseline then going into 2022 and start the growth from there, both organically and through M&As in the Nordics going forward. And last year, we were able to turn things around regarding the margin, and we want to continue on that journey. We can see substantial improvements in net working capital and substantial improvements in net debt compared to 3 years ago. So this is the journey that we're on, and we can see that we are making progress in all areas. We can move to the next page. The long-term targets are as follows. We are targeting 5% EBITDA. We're targeting a organic growth of 2 to 4%, and then a healthy company with a leverage between 1.5 and 2.5. And of course, the growth here is also focusing around M&As, as mentioned before. We can move to the next page. These are the numbers for the first 3 quarters for this year. As you can see, net sales, as mentioned before, we're still going down until we are a fully Nordic company. But then again, looking for growth in Nordics from 2022 onwards. And you can see that the operative EBITDA has been improving for the last 6 quarters. So we are on that journey regarding the EBITDA. We can move to the next page. So why invest in Eltel? As mentioned before, we're the Nordic market leader. We're the only company present in all 4 Nordic markets. There are many trends supporting the growth in communication and in power. We are focusing around operational excellence. We still feel that we have more to give internally. Very quality-focused organization, very appreciated by our biggest customers. And we have cross-border synergies that we are focusing on utilizing as much as possible. For example, we have a resource company in Lithuania, so we have our own cross-border workforce working in the different Nordic countries as an example of synergies that we have within Eltel Group. And I think that was the last slide. Then we'll open up for any questions that you might have.
Yes, thank you very much, Casimir, for the presentation. And the first question, as you mentioned during your presentation, you signed a contract to build transmission lines in Finland. and the contract is worth somewhere around 20 million euros. Could you tell us about this project? What is Eltel scope and also the size of the project?
Yes, the customer is OX2, and it's about 2 wind parks, and where we are building an overhead line, 400 kV line, and then a 100 kV line as well, and including then substations. So that project will then start next year, and it's one part is 50 million, and the other one is 7 million all in all, and that is one of our key areas and core competences within Eltel in Finland. So very happy that we could win that one and announced it some weeks ago.
Yeah, and regarding Finland, in terms of your last 12 months performance, Finland has been the strongest market in terms of organic growth and improving margins. What would you say separates Finland from the other Nordic countries?
I think in communication it's quite similar compared to Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. Then of course the strong market position we have in power that differs from the other Nordic countries. Then I think we were first to start the operational excellence and productivity programs in Finland in 2019, and Finland is benefiting from that. On the top of that, the organization done a very good work, and the market is positive, and there is opportunities for organic growth in both power and communication. As such, there's not I mean, our 4 Nordic countries are in a bit different stages, and I think comparing Finland and Norway would maybe be the closest in communication, where you also see that we have good numbers in Norway. So we have work to be done in Sweden, and then I think Denmark was on a very good journey until we lost one contract that unfortunately was insourced by one of our big customers in Denmark. So I think operational Denmark is on a good level, but needs some growth on the top line.
And just one last question. As you said during the presentation, you are looking into M&A from 2022 and onwards. Could you perhaps give us some examples of types of companies and so on that you are interested in?
I think looking at the portfolio and Eltel in the Nordics, it's clear that Sweden and Denmark are the countries where we are looking more closely into M&As. Finland is strong and on a good organic growth path, supported by a good market. And it's clear that we need more top line in Sweden and in Denmark. Of course, on the power side, potentially, yes. And either we are looking at becoming a real player on the power side, or then we are looking at mid-sized companies that could be in the range of 30, 40, 50 million euros in net sales. Could be also niche players where we are active in that business, maybe in one country, but not in another. And then we have enough knowledge and know-how about how the business, how we run the business in one country, and then we might look for an M&A in a similar niche in another country. So there are different elements that we are looking at, and different sizes. And of course, M&A, as always, you have many processes, many things going on, and then if you actually go through at the end.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like 2022 will be an exciting year for you. I think that was all that we had time for today. Thank you very much for joining us and giving us an update on Eltel, Casimir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thanks for the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.